Hello, Joe. Welcome you to Hello 你好 program.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So can you tell us in this Western Economy Summit, what is the highlight of that?
Well, the highlight certainly was that our keynote speaker was former President Bill Clinton. We were so grateful that he could attend, and he was a fantastic speaker. In Urumqi,
okay,
in Xinjiang, yes, beautiful province.
Why not in Xian?
Well, I mean, we really looked at where would be the best host. What would be something that would really be very important to China and also be very appealing to President Clinton. And we felt that Western China is really the future with the Go West policy of the central government. So it was a perfect match.
You have told us that you like a bridge. When there is a bridge, there must be a gap. So do you think there is a big gap between the Chinese and American businessmen?
I think that the gap is lessening, and I think that as the U.S. does business in China and more China does business in the U.S., the gap is lessening. But overall, I think there is a disconnect because our cultures are very different and our histories are very different. There really is a disconnect and a need to bring people together. Yeah.
So can you give us some example?
Well, I'm trying to do the best that I can to make sure that there's very little misunderstanding. But a personal experience, a personal story, one of my first interactions with Chinese government leaders was when a high-level delegation visited New York City, and I took a delegation of 15 people to Albany, New York, the state capital of New York State, for meetings and to meet the people that I used to work with. It was a very long day, and the meeting was very successful. And afterwards, we drove back to New York City, and they invited me to dinner. And that's where I began to see how protocol and certain rituals were very important that I wasn't aware of. My friend actually had told me that when you first give a business card, you do it with two hands, out of respect. That was something new to me. Something as simple as that, I think, shows a lot of respect. But at the end of the day, for this dinner, I was very tired, and I was the first one to sit down at the table while everyone else was standing. And that, I noticed, made people very uncomfortable.
We can see that the Global Dynamic Group have already created many chances and told the American or the Chinese businessmen to learn much. But to yourself, during so many years of the work, what do you learn between this kind of the communication?
I think that really it's understanding that everything is always a mystery.
Mystery?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you give us an explicit explanation about that?
I think that we're all searching for a specific answer, and we want to really understand all the details, and especially in business. In business, we want to know the facts and figures before we make a decision. But I think that in the end, you have to take a leap of faith. You just have to believe in what you're doing and go forth and do it. And that's what I did with this company. No one believed that we could bring Bill Clinton to Western China, and we did it. No one could believe that it's possible to have this type of face-to-face communication and for people to really get along and exchange ideas in such a great and positive way. And I think we'll continue to do that. And it would be nice if we had a simple answer for everything and we could define everything. But I think that sort of understanding that there's never a complete answer matches. It's something that China understands from China's history and China's philosophical background, and it's the same that the U.S. brings to the table too. There is a certain mystery to the world, and that's okay. Sometimes there is confusion, but if we agree we're both confused a little bit, it's okay.
We all know a lot of people is concerning about the Chinese and U.S. Commercial relationship, and it's also play a very important role in the world economic. So can you give us your perspective about this relation between the China and U.S. commercial?
I think that more and more our futures are really tied together. There's no question that as China grows, China will be more important on the world stage. And so the U.S. really has to find good ways to work together and to collaborate with China. And if you look at the global supply chain, really that's how we're all interconnected, and that something that's manufactured in China is shipped all the way across the globe and sold in the U.S. And all along those points, there are important companies that play a role in making that happen. And so the more that we understand that process and recognize that process, the more efficient we can be and the more closely we can work together.
It sounds very reasonable, but I heard some complaint from American because they said, oh, there are now too many goods and the type of ways are made in China.
Right.
So they think they put too much money in Chinese market.
Right.
What do you think of?
I would disagree with that. I think that there's many opportunities in China and that China is a great place to invest. And I think that there's tremendous growth potential in China. But I think that really the next wave is going to be Chinese investment in the U.S. Just as Japan began to invest in the U.S. in the 1980s after their big economic boom and into the 90s, I think that China will do the same thing. And that will change the U.S. perspective on China.
Oh, you think China can also invest in U.S. market?
Yes, yes.
So what do you think the the U.S. market will attract the Chinese businessmen to invest their money on there?
I think that what we really have and that gives us a great advantage is our infrastructure.
Infrastructure.
Right, right. It's tremendous legal infrastructure, financial services infrastructure, our banking system, and our telecommunication system is really still the best in the world, and that makes doing business so much easier.
But I want to know, in the final or in the future, what is your final goal to do this kind of things? You have told us it's not for the making money and this. So what is your goal for yourself, for your life?
Well, I would like to. The real future, I think, for all of us is all of us to work together, all of us to communicate well, and I think that really we do that through economic exchange, economic development. If you look at Europe and the European Union, that now is a whole block of nations that are culturally very different, but they all work together. They have a common currency, and I think there's real peace and stability in that region. I'd like to do the same type of thing across from the U.S. to China and in other places, because I think with real economic exchange and economic opportunity, it really does help to promote peace and prosperity and sustainability.
You really made it. I should say you made it.
Thanks.
So at last, I hope you have a very bright future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Great. Thank you.
That's all right.
All right, good.